Hi everyone! So this is going to be a big review of what will be covered on the Unit 4 test. We're going to have 7 total topics, and I'm going to give you a sample problem from each topic, and each topic should correspond with the purple packet that is due for Monday. Okay, so the first topic is finding the slope between 2 points. So the example problem will be, alright, I'm going to give you a point that's negative 3, 4, and another point that's going to be 5, negative 8. Remember from class that our slope, right, which is m, equals the change in y over the change in x. So if we write it out nicely, right, which it takes only 2 seconds to do, so make sure you're writing it out nicely, we're going to have 4 minus negative 8, okay, over negative 3 minus 5. If we simplify that, we get 4 plus 8 over negative 3 minus 5, which is just 12 over negative 8. I'm not done yet though, because I need to make sure that I reduce that fraction. So when I reduce it, I get m equals 3 over negative 2. And I could rewrite this and just say negative 3 over 2. And these are the equivalent fractions. So the second topic that we're going to go over is how to graph a line by finding the x and y intercept. Usually this method is really helpful when your equation is already in standard form. So for example, 4x minus 3y equals 12. Right? This is in standard form, which if you remember is in the form ax plus by equals c. Okay, so let's just remember what the x and y intercepts are. What if you had a line that did, that went like this? Okay, well here, this would be your y-intercept, and this would be your x-intercept. What do we notice about these points, right? These are points. Well, what do we notice? Well, the x-intercept is where y is 0, right? Y equals 0. And here, the y-intercept is where x is 0. And you have some kind of number for x and some kind of number for y. So when we have this equation, how do I find just the x and y intercept? So first I'm going to organize my notes and say x-intercept I'm going to solve over here. My y-intercept I'm going to solve over here. Okay, and I'm going to write myself a little note, right? X-intercept is when y equals 0. My y-intercept is when x equals 0. And all I'm doing is I'm going to plug. So for the x-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for y into the equation and solve for x. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to have 4x minus 3 times 0, right? So instead of y, I'm writing 0, equals 12. Well, this thing, 3 times 0, just becomes 0. I have 4x equals 12, so now I know that x equals 3. Remembering that x-intercepts are just a special point, I can represent this as a coordinate pair where it's going to be 3, 0. So when x is 3, y is 0. And that's a point on my graph. Now, to do the y-intercept, I'm going to do kind of the opposite, right? I'm going to plug in x equals 0. So 0 for x. So I get 4 times 0 minus 3y equals 12. Now this is when you want to be a little careful. 4 times 0 becomes 0, and what I have left is a negative 3y. So you have to remember to bring down that negative sign, because now I get y equals negative 4 instead of just 4, and my coordinate pair will be 0, negative 4. Now in the purple packet, I don't ask you to graph it, but you should know that if you wanted to graph these 2 points, you can easily do that by drawing your coordinate plane, x and y axes, right? My x-intercept is 3, 0, and you can just write 3, right? And my y-intercept is -4, and right, just there you go. And all you're doing is you're connecting these two points to make a linear line, and that is the graph of the equation. The third topic that we're going to review is how to graph a line using the slope-intercept formula. Sometimes the example will be just as easy as y equals 2x minus 4. Notice that the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, right? This equation is already in that form, where m equals 2, or you can say 2 over 1, and b is -4. So in this case, if you want to just graph it, you start at the y-intercept, which is -4, and you go up 2 and over to the right 1, and now you can connect your points. And I've graphed my equation. Okay, but sometimes it's not as easy as y equals mx plus b. What if the equation wasn't in y equals mx plus b form? Okay, so the example might be 4x minus 5y equals, 13, we'll say. Okay, this is in standard form, which is helpful when you have your x and y intercepts, right, to find your x and y intercepts, but it's not helpful when you're trying to find the slope. So we are going to rewrite this equation. So my first step is to subtract the 4x from both sides. You can't just move this x over, okay? You can't just be like, oh, I want this 4x over here. You have to subtract. You have to use the rules of equality, right? So I have to subtract 4x from both sides. I end up with -5, right? Remember to bring down that negative sign, equals 13 minus 4x. Remember, you can't combine these two because they are not like terms. Finally, I'm going to divide through by -5 because I want to get it so that it's just one y. So I have y equals 13 over -5. Now watch this. It's a negative divided by a negative. So I'm actually going to have a positive 4 over 5x. Now my last step, to make it a little easier for some people, is going to be to rewrite this a little bit nicer, and I'm going to say y equals 4 over 5x. Just put the x first, and then I'm going to say minus 13 over 5, since it was a -5. And now I have my slope-intercept form, from which I can say m is 4 over 5, and b is -13 over 5. So the big question that I heard a lot of you ask is, how do you even graph -13 over 5 on the graph? Well, you make your coordinate x and y, and you say, okay, well, -13 over 5 is a little bit more than -2, right? It's probably about -2.5. And you can definitely find the exact number. The exact number is -2.6. But if you know that it's about -2.5, that's pretty solid. So you graph it, right, in between the -2 and the -3. So you plot your y-intercept right here. You know the slope is 4 over 5, so you're going to go up 4. It's a little weird because it's in between the lines, and then over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's my point, and I'm going to connect the lines. Just to double check, I know that I had a positive slope, right? I had a 4 over 5, and my y-intercept is negative. So if it looks pretty similar, that's a pretty good way to graph that line. Okay, so topic 4 is actually my favorite form, which is point-slope form. The reason why I love this form so much is that you can use this anytime, right? Anytime that you have a point and a slope. Okay, so let's do an example problem. Well, first let's talk about the form. The form is, if you remember, and you should know this, it's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so let's go. The example is going to be, you are given that the slope is 3 over 4 and your point is negative 8 over 6. Okay, so let's see. All you have to do is you recognize that you have a slope, you have a point. I want to write the equation of the line that goes through these things. So here we go. We're just going to plug it into point slope form. So I get y minus 6, right? Remember, this is your y1, equals m, which is 3 over 4, parentheses, x minus negative 8. So I'm just going to go x plus 8, okay? Just remember, minus a negative is a positive. Now, the tricky part here is now I have to distribute a fraction, okay? So let's just be careful when we do that. It's going to be 3 over 4x. That part's pretty easy. And now I say, well, what is 3 over 4 times 8 over 1? Well, 3 over 4 times 8 over 1 is just 24 over 4, which we know is 6. You always want to reduce any fraction so that if it's a whole number, it looks a lot nicer and makes a little bit more sense maybe. So 3 over 4x plus 6. And on the left side, I still have y minus 6. So my next step to finish my my problem here, right? I would like to set it up so it's in y equals mx plus b form, so that way I know the y-intercept. Helps me when I want to graph. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. And now I have y equals 3 over 4x plus 12. And that's it. So from this, you know how to graph it, right? But just in case, if you want to just watch it one more time, how do I graph that? It's just going to be starting at 12. Let's say this is 12. I'm going to estimate here. And I'm going to go up 3 over 4. And then I'm going to connect these 2 points. And that's the graph of my equation. And I'm done. The one thing I want you to be aware of is if I give you 2 points instead of giving you the slope and the y-intercept, instead of giving you the slope and a point, right? Instead I'm giving you just 2 points. How do you write an equation of the line, right? Well, it's the same thing, right? To write an equation of any line, you need to figure out what your slope is. Okay, so I have 2 points. And I know how to find the slope between these 2 points. So all you have to do is m equals, right? It's the rise over run. So I'm going to write negative 4 minus 6, 2 minus 5. And I end up with negative 10 over negative 3. We reduce that to positive 10 over 3 because a negative over a negative is positive. Now that I have a slope, I can choose either of these points, whichever one looks nicer to me, and plug it into my point slope form, which again is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I'm just going to take you through the plugging in part, and you guys can solve the rest on your own. So let's say I'm going to choose the 2 comma negative 4. So I'm going to have y minus negative 4, so I'm just going to say y plus 4 equals 10 over 3 times x minus 2. And just be aware that what you do is you're going to distribute this fraction and solve for y. And then that's it. Topic 5 is all about writing an equation using slope-intercept form. So this is when you already know what m is. So let's say you know that m is 2/3. And you're given b, right, the y-intercept. And sometimes b is just given as a number, or it could be given as a point, okay? The point would be when x is 0, whatever value y is, that's just your y-intercept. So just be aware of that. It could be in that form as well. So when you have that, remember that your slope-intercept form is just y equals mx plus b. And all you're doing is now plugging into this equation. So we have y equals 2/3 x minus 2. And that's all they want you to do when you are already given the slope and the y-intercept. Just as a quick side topic, I threw in adding fractions because it seems like a lot of us are having a little bit of trouble, especially when we have whole numbers. So what if you have something like -2 plus 2/3? Okay, just remember, you still need to find a common denominator, which is 3. So you're saying -2/1 is the same thing as saying -6/3 plus 2/3. And a lot of us can get here, but now we have the component of -6 plus 2. So we all know -6 plus 2 is -4, and then it's just over 3. Okay? And you leave it as an improper fraction as long as it's completely reduced. So topic 6 is all about writing an equation and putting it into standard form. And remember, standard form looks like ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are just whole numbers. Okay? And this form is really helpful, again, when you just want to find the x and y intercept. Or when you have a word problem, it's really easy to start out in this form. So how do we get it to this form? Okay, well, what if you have the slope is 2/3 and you're given a point that it's going to be 6 comma -3. Okay, well, let's remember, if you have a point and you have a slope, you have a great form called point-slope form that you can just plug into and write the equation of the line. So again, it's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Alright, so let's just plug it in. We've got y minus -3, so it's just y plus 3, equals 2/3 times x minus 6. Okay, so first I'm going to distribute. Okay, I'm going to get it into y equals mx plus b form because I know how to do it from there. So we've got 2/3 x minus 4. If you forget how to multiply fractions, go back to, I think, topic 3 and just remember or relearn it. And we have y plus 3 at the end on the left side. Now, from this point, we have, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And I'm going to end up with y equals 2/3 x minus 7. Okay, I'm going to write down my form, right? ax plus by equals c, and I want to get it to this form. I now have it in slope-intercept form. I want it in standard form. So my first step is to subtract away the 2/3 x, right? That way, I want to have the x on the left side. So I have -2/3 x plus y equals -7. I'm really close now. I have the x and y on the left side, and I have a number on the right side. Okay? But the only thing I have to remember is that a, b, and c must be whole numbers. Okay? So I can't have any fractions. So how do I get whole numbers? Well, what I do is I look at each of my terms and I figure out what the common denominator is. In this case, the common denominator is 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply each of my terms by 3. If you don't write it right next to each term, you're going to forget to multiply it. So please make sure you are doing that. Now I'm going to multiply 3, which is just 3/1, to -2/3, and I get -2x plus 3y equals -21. And that is the same equation but rewritten in standard form. So I'm noticing that this video is getting a little long, and topic 7, which says writing the equation of a parallel or perpendicular line, was a pretty tricky topic. So we're going to go over this on Monday. So if you can't do 17 and 18, I'm okay with that. I obviously would really strongly encourage anyone to give it a try, but I'm not going to show you how to do it in this video since we're going to do a fun activity on Monday, just learning how to write these equations, and that's it. So hopefully this video was helpful, and good luck with finishing the packet.